In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about how travel can destroy your life. Welcome to the Wanderlust Moment podcast, hosted by Noah
and Vanessa.
We're a married couple who loves traveling the world and sharing all those experiences with you,
whether it's good or bad.
So now let's jump right into today's episode. So this episode is another installment in my kind of ongoing series that I'm starting where I dive more into the philosophy of travel, more of the life-changing aspects about it, not just where to go, how to go there, for how long, what should you do, which those are really important too. But ultimately, there's reasons why people should travel, maybe reasons why people shouldn't travel in some aspects, and just my own experiences that maybe you can relate to, or just life lessons that people can, continue to share with people. Not that I have all the answers, of course, but just reflecting on my own experiences and just opening up a deeper conversation about this huge, monumental part of my life and something people strive for, or something people have to figure out their own relationship with if they are privileged enough to be able to go to different parts of the world and incorporate into their life. So my previous installment, I talked mostly about things from travel you can bring back to your life. And this ultimately is the positive effects that travel can have on you. I still want to do a little bit of an episode talking about why you should travel, ultimately the best reasons, the biggest reasons for why you should travel, which is slightly different, but there will be, I'm sure, some overlap. So of course, on the flip side, as the episode is titled, there are some really negative impacts that traveling can have. And if you're not careful, it could destroy your life. Now, I don't mean to make it a super dramatic or hyperbolic comparison, but travel can kind of be like a drug in some ways. It might not destroy your health to the same extent, or make you do as intense things, or give you cravings or can't think of the word when your body is depending upon it, and then you withdrawals. I do have travel withdrawal symptoms in other ways, I guess, but it's not nearly as significant. But there are lots of negative things that can happen to you if you're not careful. So let me talk about that and why travel can destroy your life. So the ultimate number one reason, it's not safety, although that could be one in some instances, but I think that's a big reason a lot of people don't travel is because they're afraid. They're afraid of uncertainty, things they hear on the media. I guess you're in your own country, your own bubble. Maybe you know your rights. Maybe you know day by day what you can expect. And then just uncertainty and fear. It can paralyze a lot of people or prevent them from going out of their comfort zone. So that's definitely one thing to keep in mind. But one of the main reasons travel can destroy your life is money. Now, a lot of people have the conception that to travel, you need to have a lot of money. And I don't think that's necessarily true, but it can definitely, there's no way around it when you really think about it. Unless you choose some different kind of paths to minimize cost. So let's talk about that. To save money in travel, you can look at budget flights. Google Flights is a really good tool for this. It can show you the cost of different destinations on different days, and it'll show you the trends and over time and show you if it's a good price or a bad price. You can also use it to just show you the map and all the different prices of different flights available to you at that time or the time that you select on that calendar. So Google Flights is really good for that. But a lot of people, they travel because there's a place they've dreamed of going. There's a place they really want to go. They have a select vacation time slot that they can use. Either maybe they have summers off or holidays off, or they book their 2 weeks ahead of time, so they can't perfectly time their schedule around the best budget option. So this can easily cost a ton of money to go on some trips, thousands of dollars for flights. Of course, like I said, if you use Google Flights or a website called Skyscanner, it will give you some ideas on where to fly for a cheaper option at different times of the year or whatever time you select. So yeah, just the money that you put into a flight, that can crush you. And if you travel a lot, that's thousands of dollars easily. And that can be just getting to a location for flights, or if you're going on a longer trip and you're bouncing around flying to other countries nearby, you can spend thousands and thousands of dollars on flights getting back home. And of course, you're going to have money spent for additional luggage. Of course, if you're backpacking, that's ideal. But for a longer trip, or if you want a little bit more luxury, you can spend a lot more money on just adding baggage, not a lot more, but it adds up, especially if you have multiple flights set up. And if you go on multiple trips a year, that's thousands of dollars. So that financially can kind of crush you. And you can kind of be in this little vicious cycle if you really prioritize traveling of saving up money, and then you spend it all or a large chunk of it. And then once you get to that country, of course, there's more expenses, whether it's like touristic expenses, eating out a lot of the time, which I'll talk about more later. Of course, you're getting around to that country too, like buses. And some countries can be more expensive than your own, although that's not really the case for America or the United States nowadays. So you can be in this vicious cycle of like saving up money, spending a large chunk of it on a trip, or some people spend like all of it if they're backpacking. They go back home, they have to like slum it, and then they save up again to go on the next trip, and you just kind of just rinse and repeat. And it's just like you're kind of just only saving your money for these trips, which I don't think it's ever a bad thing to spend money on a trip per se. Obviously, if like you're like in a really desperate situation, that's something you should really consider, of course, prioritize your own well-being and security to a certain extent. But yeah, traveling, it's such a valuable experience. So it's worth spending money on, but you don't want to like be in this constant like stress cycle of never having like any stability, any security, and then just only living like for that vacation mode or travel mode. Because that's just not healthy in that way too. And at some point, like obviously when you're young, people say travel, but at some point you want to start saving money for retirement or expenses, or maybe like let's say you have a car problem, let's say you want to at some point switch housing, and then you need to like pay more for rent or security deposits or buy a house. I'm not like, I'm turning any new stones over here, so to speak. These are all things that everyone knows, but obviously if you spend all your money traveling and you kind of get stuck in this rut, this vicious cycle, it can destroy your life. It can keep you in a place where maybe you're not really that happy. Maybe you're just living for the next vacation, or you just don't have the security that I think can be like a base level for some sort of fulfillment and happiness, So money, that's an obvious one. And of course, you can minimize this by traveling to places that are cheaper at that time. Like I've said a million times, don't want to be a dead horse on that one. Or credit card points, that's really big. If you don't have like a tendency to overspend on your credit cards, look at travel credit cards. And if you spend a certain amount of money within like the first couple months, you'll get like a reward, a free bonus, which is like, could be $1,000, and that can easily like book some flights. And if you don't do that like frequently, because you don't want to run up a million credit cards, I'm not the credit cards points guy, but I have used it to my benefit to not spend as much money and be a little bit more savvy. So that's something you should consider as well. So money, obviously. Now let's talk about a little bit more about the psychological impact and how it can destroy your brain in some other ways, because obviously it can drain your bank account. So the beauty of traveling, and I talked about this as my main point in my previous episode, it's the novelty. It's seeing new things, because humans, and I'll dive more into this with other things, of course, we are incredibly brilliant at adapting to like things around us, to our situation. I think it's one of the main reasons like why we're still alive today. It's our adaptability. But this can mean like a major downfall as far as like being stimulated by certain experiences or activities. I mean, just think about it. Let's say you go to like a really nice cafe and you're like, oh my God, this is a new cafe. This is amazing. It's great. You go there maybe like 10 times and like, yeah, the coffee's still good, but it doesn't give you that rush. It doesn't feel like a new exciting thing anymore in the same way that it might have previously felt. And this can really happen with traveling. And I've heard other people talk about it too. You go on a long trip, and I could think of a million different examples. Let's say you're traveling around Asia, a beautiful, kind of exotic culture with different architecture, maybe different cultural norms, a different kind of like history where like the values and religious beliefs affect the culture differently. And then the language is different in a lot of places, very different. You can't even read it. And one of the main things that people love to do in Asia, myself included, is look at temples, because we don't really have temples in the West, not to the same extent. And they're not as like beautiful, or don't feel as maybe culturally rich, unless you're going to like some heavily Asian influenced parts of the world. Asia is a great place to see temples, But if you're traveling for a couple weeks or a couple months or a long period of time, or like you're in one part, like one city, if you see a certain amount of temples, you're going to feel a little bit numb to it. You're not going to be as like impressed, and you're going to be like, okay, like I kind of have temple burnout, or in Europe, people have church burnouts, because at first the churches and cathedrals are just so beautiful and massive and ornate and historical, and the architecture. But after you've seen like 5, 10, you really can't be bothered. You're going to need a really impressive church or something even better to like stimulate you in the same way or in a similar way. I would say, honestly, that's why I'm saying it's kind of like a drug, because it can still stimulate you, but nothing will ever stimulate you like your first experience, your first time having your world blown, your first time seeing a beautiful temple like you've never seen before, or stepping into a massive like Gothic style architectural church in Europe for the first time, or something like that, or a waterfall. It can be nature, it can be mountain views, it can be sunsets, it can be seeing that beautiful blue, like turquoise water, where it looks like Kool-Aid out there in the ocean. So all these things we adapt to, and it just becomes our new baseline. And this can like really destroy your brain, I think. One, will you travel, because you're always going to be like searching that new high, searching that new stimulating experience or novelty. But also when you get back home, it's just like, obviously you can still enjoy other parts of being back home, like maybe some sort of sense of stability, some sense of routine, seeing your family and friends, because that might not be something you can really focus on when you're traveling, of course. But back home just might seem even more boring. And that's kind of like the trade-off of seeing the beautiful places in the world. It's like, it's stimulating, but if that becomes your new baseline for like what's exciting or interesting, maybe things back in your hometown aren't going to be that fun. Whether it's going like shopping, whether it's going to be like walks in nature, whether it's going to be going to like restaurants and cafes, all of these things, or like going to the park, it just can all seem a little more dull, a little less impressive. So that, and if you're only traveling for like certain parts of the year, and you're like need to spend money to get that stimulation, to get that excitement, that adventure, that thrill, maybe we're gonna be forced to go broke to not be in this rut of depression, or just like feeling like life isn't not worth living in the same way, but it doesn't feel as exciting. You don't feel as alive living in that sense, So I think, that constantly seeing new things and being desensitized and needing to see more beautiful things, more interesting, more different, that can be really harmful in that way. I could think of some of my own anecdotes. When I was, I want to say 21, 22, obviously I studied abroad, or if you've heard my story or like what led me to travel, I studied abroad when I was finishing up college, and that blew my mind. That was like that huge stimulating experience. I've had other ones growing up too, but nothing could compare for me, like going across the world to Tokyo, Japan, and living there for 4 months as a student, meeting people. It was just so amazing. But also a little bit limited maybe on like the landscape and nature side of things. And I started dating my now wife, and she was my adventure buddy. We were doing fun things together, and we were kind of experienced with like mountains. So from where we are in Michigan, it's a little bit of a longer trip, but you can drive south to get to some of like the Appalachian kind of mountains, or those kind of mountains that aren't as big and extreme as the ones out west, but they're still pretty in their own right. But for us, even like driving from Michigan to Ohio, then reaching Kentucky and starting to see some like rolling hills, it was exciting. It was thrilling. Would that do anything to me nowadays? I hate to say it, but no, it wouldn't. And we went to this, I think a national park called Mammoth Cave, and it was cool. It was nice. It has some like nice woods and some rolling hills, but that felt much more extreme. And we could appreciate the nature much more. So maybe sometimes you need to recalibrate and kind of like be very like thankful or present or grateful for what you're experiencing. I don't mean to say this to like try and diminish someone else's experience. Maybe going to Tennessee or Kentucky is a really important memory for you. I mean, it is for me, because at that time, relative to my own experience, it was incredible and really fun. I felt like an adventure. But given my own kind of new threshold or experiences, climbing 14,000 feet mountains in Colorado, or going like 20,000 feet elevation in Peru, or seeing gorgeous green lush mountains in Oahu, Hawaii, and so many more places, seeing Mount Fuji, a massive snow-capped volcanic mountain, or stratovolcano, whatever the term is, in Japan. It's just, you can kind of see. I might just start exploring other planets. No, there's so many more beautiful places to explore on Earth. such as places like Iceland. And I want to go to Iceland so bad, or Alaska so bad, but I'm kind of scared that after going to a place like that with nature and scenery so drastically different than so many places in the world that make it feel like it's almost a different planet. It's like, what is that going to do to my brain after that? It's kind of that trade-off for having that amazing experience, but kind of feeling like I'm screwing myself for future experiences in a way, I think one of my friends, he asked me if I've ever visited Alaska, and I said I want to, and he said, oh, there's a famous saying that once you travel to Alaska, like you can't go anywhere else. And I kind of understand that meaning, even though I've never been to Alaska. The whole like essence or like the meaning behind that quote, it's I've experienced it in my own way with all those various examples that I've experienced and maybe you can relate to as well. And I guess like on a separate tangent, that's why people say once you travel a lot, it's really important to focus on the people and like the culture, because people are people, duh. But those connections can be amazing, whether you're in the most beautiful place in the world or a place that's similar to other places you've been. Their stories, their effect on you, like sharing like conversation and learning from each other, or like diving into more like local aspects of travel versus just like seeing the beautiful sights and attractions that can ultimately where you get like the greater fulfillment and meaning and connection going forward versus just chasing the beauty and the novelty of like the sights and stuff like that. So anyway, that kind of gives you hopefully a good example of what I'm talking about. And before I was talking about when you come back home, even if you're not like able to do as many exciting things where you live, which for me, I live in a small town in Michigan, so that definitely is the case. If you're spending all of your time like away from home, traveling, coming back for a little bit, then leaving again, that's amazing. You're making amazing memories. You're seeing the world. You're taking advantage of hopefully your youth or your retirement or money you've saved up and put aside to like go out and do these things. But if you're younger and you're just spending all your time like doing this, it can really affect your progress in other parts of your life if you're not careful and you can't find that balance. And one of the main ones, of course, is going to be career advancement. So this whole travel philosophy series, I think it's going to be a lot of yin and yang, because like everything has two sides, everything has positives and negatives, double-edged sword kind of thing, and I think a lot of people, especially in America, they are very success driven. They're very like want to be ambitious. They want to make a bunch of money and save up money. And that's great for people. I think sometimes it can be a little shallow in some ways. Well, I wouldn't say it's great. I think it can be great to like establish yourself and maybe you like your career. Maybe you're interested in what you're doing and there's nothing wrong with being successful. But if you're just doing it because that's like the only thing you think that matters and then you reach it there and you don't like your job, you feel like you've lost out on some like precious experiences, that can be really harmful. But if you kind of go way too far the other way, you could potentially really negatively affect your life career-wise. But I don't think that's like something you should let prevent you from traveling or taking advantage of that. But let's say, for example, you get out of high school and you decide to take like a gap year before college and you travel and then you fall in love with it and then you decide to keep on doing it and then you never went to school. And at some point you decide, oh my gosh, like I'm a little burnt out from traveling maybe, or I have that kind of numbness. I spent a ton of money. Now I guess I'll have to go to school. That can be a little bit harder to do if you postpone it because, I mean, everyone's different, but I think one of the strongest forces when getting things done or making progress or just in general is momentum. And I think it can be really helpful for people overall. If you go to college right after high school, don't take a gap year because it kind of takes you out of the mix. And we're also like products of our environment. If all of our friends are applying to college or going to college, it makes it easier for us to do that versus let's say we're traveling for like 3 years and we start college when we're 21 or 22. And then we're with all these 18 and 19 year olds going to school, unless you're doing like community college or online school or something. So, or let's say you, like me, you do your undergrad and then you decide maybe you're going to take a gap year and then go to grad school. It can make it hard to want to go back to school maybe when you're in your later 20s or in your 30s, or maybe when you're 26, late 20s, So in essence, it can just really kind of either slow down or make you lose momentum or steam for your professional development for school or for jobs or, just getting promotions or advancing or something like that, I mean, that's just kind of a no-brainer if you're going to take all this time away and money away from this part of your life. It can really, I wouldn't say prevent it, but maybe stagnate it to a certain extent. And maybe that's okay. I mean, I think it's definitely okay. And we'll kind of do like a ultimate conclusion or wrap up in summation of all these like things that can be aspects of travel that can really negatively impact your life. But when we're talking about being away from home, of course, like the career part, but then there's also just relationships and community. Now, this one's a little tricky because, of course, you're going to have friends, or hopefully, from your hometown. And sometimes you grow apart from people. And that's totally okay because you should kind of go in the direction that feels right for you. And if that means you're changing or moving away from certain people, like, that's okay. Like, your relationships change as you grow older too. Sometimes they get stronger. Sometimes the dynamics change. Sometimes you feel like you don't relate to people as much. So that's not so much what I'm talking about. It's more just about being away from people. And if you have really solid relationships and good relationships and you still put in time and you check in on people, there's nothing to say that they like have to be broken, whether it's like friendships, or family, obviously. Hopefully if you have a significant other that's coming along with you and you're experiencing this beautiful life of traveling together. But maybe people at home, they feel like they relate to you less. Maybe they see what you're doing and it can make them feel uncomfortable. Because sometimes people, I don't mean to be weird, but they might be a projection of jealousy where like, oh, traveling, it's so stupid. Like, it's just very short-sighted. And we talked about ways it could be, but if that's our main takeaway, it can kind of be like they're drinking too much haterade, And then, of course, it's just the main thing that helps relationships is just like experiences together. Or, I'd say like that's the main thing, like that can be talking on the phone. It can be like running something by somebody. It can be just checking in on them. It can be inviting them or mentioning them to something. There's so many little things you can do for relationships that are really important. But it's just the amount of times that there's like an engagement between you and that person. I think that's the ultimate thing for relationships. Of course, you need some deeper engagements with people to get past the surface level or to feel like you're connecting and being seen by them. But it's just interactions together. I think that's like really important. And if you're away from home, that can really like dramatically reduce the frequency of those. And there's some people where you like haven't seen them in a couple of years or 6 months or a few months or whatever, and you see them again and it's like you're right back to the last time you hung out, and it's like instant like chemistry, reconnection. It's like your friendship never skipped a beat, and that's a really wonderful thing. But there's other ones too where people kind of like they pull away a little bit and they're kind of like trying to figure you out. Your dynamics a little rusty, and that can kind of create like a little bit of awkwardness. And maybe they've moved on and they've, in some ways, they have like a more concrete, solid friend group where they do things together more regularly. So that kind of like changes their dynamic with like you inviting you to do things. There's a million different reasons. And of course, like there can be family. Like if your family's getting older, or there's like major life events like birthdays or graduations, or you can kind of be away from those major life events or be away from times where you want to be together with your family and want to be there for support, or they want to be there to, I don't know, like see you grow. So you're just kind of taken out of your own community. And I think it can be, sometimes you need to get out there to figure out like what community you want, what kind of people do you want to meet, or relationships fulfill you the most, because sometimes you just only know what you know until you go out there and like meet more people, see other kinds of life. And I've talked a little bit about things you can bring back from your life, and there's other cultural norms that you can bring back into your own life to a certain extent, because you still live in a different society with different people operating under different kinds of norms or expectations. So you can bring those back to you to a certain extent, which that can be really helpful, that travel can kind of remind you of or inspire you to do. But sometimes, if you figure out that community or that feeling isn't possible in your hometown, maybe you're going to move and maybe you need to start again. And they can be really healthy, but it can also potentially temporarily damaged. I wouldn't say irreparably damaged, unless like something terrible's happening. You're like, yeah, I'm going on a trip, so see ya. Because maybe that's just a little bit too selfish or some ways. But it can, take you away from those frequencies, those interactions with people that you care about. And like, again, with your career, stagnate a friendship and take you a little bit out of the mix. So that's something, of course, that can be harmful to your life because we need relationships. We're social animals. And I think there's something to be said about people you can depend on that you've known for a long time, rather than just like new friends who can be really great and amazing. And it's always cool to meet new people and increase their social circle with meaningful friendships, but I think the people you can depend on, you've had that like time, that established time, that could be super helpful and it's not even super helpful. It's paramount for a lot of reasons, So that's something that should definitely be considered about traveling and how it could negatively impact your life if you're not careful. And then let's talk about kind of more along the lines of the first thing, which is the traveling lifestyle. And because there's so many different ways to travel, but I think along with that, you're going to be number one, seeing a lot of new things, of course. And then also sometimes the life you live while traveling, it's not a realistic life. Because you're going to be going out to eat a lot. Usually when you're traveling, you can like get a place where you can cook to save money, but you're going to be going out to eat a lot of the time. Usually you're going to be like basing your day around like fun activities and seeing new things all the time. And when you go back home, unless you're very fortunate, that's usually not going to be the case. Usually it's going to be more into a routine. Maybe you're going to be doing lots of chores all the time. You're going to be cooking a lot of meals, running errands, obligations, trying to get to bed at a certain time because you have to wake up and go to work, where sometimes when you travel, you can sleep in, or you can just kind of totally go with the flow, go out with some new people. And then like, if you need to take the day off, you can kind of just sleep in, Now I think my goal is to be able to have like a great level of freedom and control over my own life, like to work for myself and ultimately get to decide like how I want to live my life. And if I put in the work, I'm the one that reaps the benefits for it. And I'm not like completely at the will of someone else or some other company. That would be a really nice feeling and freedom that I like strive to have in my life at home. So of course, like, and if you travel too, like that doesn't mean to say that you're just running around like this, just only a tourist, only a tourist just doing like amazing fun things every day. When I travel, sometimes I do longer stays and I'm working a lot. I'm teaching some classes at night or in the morning, or I'm running to the grocery store to make food because I'm trying not to burn through all my money and things like that. Or some days, like you don't go out to eat, you don't get coffee, and you don't go sightseeing. You're just kind of just hanging out in your own little area. And that can be kind of depressing in a way too, because you're in a different country, kind of like isolated without your friends and family, just living normal life, although it's beautiful in other ways. So I think that different lifestyle, it can be really negative if you get back home. Like I said, just getting a bit more into your routine, very predictable, and less like dopamine rushes, less excitement, less fun, new things. So I think that can really be harmful in just real life, because when you go back home, again, your baseline's changed, and then your life can be a little less exciting, a little less fulfilling, and more stressful in some ways. Traveling can be very stressful in others because sometimes it's like every new day you have to plan exactly what you want to do and then figure things out and then research, then find where you want to stay. And it can be like a lot of work in that way. And it's not just like the work you do that's maybe a little bit more routine. It can be a little bit more labor intensive in that mental way of making decisions, depending on like your job at home and things like that. So that's another way. When it really comes down to it, what can negatively impact your life is the psychological aspect of the new stimulations versus a life at home that isn't as exciting in some ways. So of course, what's the answer to all this? Because I don't want to just make this a depressing cloud. Let's talk about how you can like work with this, how you can mitigate these negative things. So the first thing, of course, is find out a financial way to travel that works for you. This is kind of obvious. Of course, if you really want to go somewhere, use apps like Hopper that can monitor. What it does is you can put in like the place you're leaving from and going to, the times, and it will like tell you the price of that flight and if you should wait or book now. And then you can like take advantage of the best deal for that place. You know, if you have like a fixed time that you need to go somewhere, or you can use apps like Skyscanner, use travel credit cards, or just, you know, save more money. Don't go out to eat as much like the months leading up to a trip, or don't like shop for clothes unless you really need to, or even at the grocery store, like don't buy as many like expensive things, kind of eat a little bit more cheap and humbly. Don't go out for drinks with your friends as much, or if you do, get like one drink. If it's nice out, go outside for fun, watch movies from home, cut out some there's a million ways you can budget for trips, you know, and like obviously some can affect you more than others, but gradually they can accumulate and like kind of put away, because a lot of people spend so much money like just really trying to enjoy the life at home because they're more invested into it, and that's totally okay. And that kind of goes into the other side of things, which is if your life at home feels really boring and you feel like you're kind of in this vicious cycle of like, oh, I'm going back home. Home is this like in between phase of my life between traveling where I'm just going to like totally minimize costs, work a ton just so I can save up on this trip and get that like dopamine rush, that exciting adventure. If you spend a little bit more time at home, that life can be very like depressing, you know? So what are some ways you can make things more fun in your hometown? Maybe like once every week or once every couple weeks, try going to a new cafe. I love coffee. That to me, that's a fun new way to start the day. You get like a little dopamine rush from like your cup of coffee, that caffeine feeling, you know. Just try going to like a different cafe in your town or a town over or something like that. Or like once a week, once every couple weeks, try going to a different restaurant, you know. It's those new things. Try going to a new park. Maybe if you have like a weekend where you're not super busy, go to like a town an hour or 2 or 3 away from you. You can leave early in the morning, come back again at night, or just do like a one-night overnight trip. You could pack a little bit of food with you if you want, or just go out to eat a couple times between your time there and seeing whatever. So you can still like travel and try and have new exciting experiences at home. And of course, there's things like hobbies, you know, that can really like give you fulfillment or make you feel like you're working towards something. Because I think sometimes traveling, it can also feel a little empty if all you're doing is just looking to stimulate yourself and get that new experience. I think a great sense of fulfillment and like a longer duration of like happy feeling, I guess like releasing more serotonin, is working towards your goals, having like more of a consistent feeling of progress and self-worth. And I don't mean to make this like how to cure depression podcast, because I guess this can kind of be thrown into that camp as well. But you can get more fulfillment, more deeper feeling at home, maybe if you have the time or the things around you to focus more on like relationships, professional development, some hobbies, things like this, you know? So I think that can like, if you're trying to balance travel and life at home, you can try and focus a little bit more on that, and then like still have some fun new experiences, some novelty, but then really like focus on that when you travel, and then put the fulfillment stuff. You can still do a little bit, but that's not the priority of your time when you're traveling. So if you like kind of balance those things perfectly, that could lead to like a perfect life. Because I don't know, like for each person, maybe you want to spend a couple months of the year traveling. Maybe you're like a snowbird and where you live, it's really cold and you just want to escape. Or maybe like you want to go on like one big trip a year and then maybe some like smaller fun things throughout the year. Or maybe you want to be a digital nomad and like, you know, be completely remote. And then you need to like find these communities and hobbies and professional advanced while traveling. But then you have like a slower period of travel. So it's kind of like completely blending like both aspects of like living and traveling, of course, because you're a digital nomad. So you can find how each one works for you. But I think it's just ultimately a balance of relationships, professional advancement to feel like you're fulfilling yourself, you're making enough money, obviously, and not spending enough money while traveling, so that you're in this constant vicious cycle, or you're feeling stressed out, or you don't have any security, of course. And then just hobbies and some things that you can progress towards, and give more of, like that delayed gratification or more consistent releases of happiness versus just that instant stimulation, which can be so addicting, and travel can certainly provide that and screw up your baseline and your expectations. So that's really what it comes down to for how travel can destroy your life and how you can prevent it. Are any of these things enough of a reason to write off traveling? Absolutely not. I think it's just kind of like with great risk comes great reward kind of thing. Or, no, that's not exactly true. It's just a double-edged sword. It's because it's so amazing that there's going to be fallbacks too. And it can be addicting and kind of screw up your brain because it's such an amazing thing to see new parts of the world, new languages, eat food that is delicious and totally unique, or you've tried in your hometown, but you've never had like in that country. And of course, can that screw up eating food in your hometown if you've had like amazing Thai food in Thailand, or delicious pasta in Italy, or pizza in Naples, or Mexican food in Mexico? Can that screw up eating ethnic food in restaurants in your hometown? Yes, it can. Absolutely. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't have that wonderful experience, because it will change your life and it'll be amazing, and it'll be something precious you can look back on for the rest of your life. Because travel, it's amazing. It's beautiful. I think it's so worth it. You just have to have a healthy relationship with it and figure out how to make it work for you while avoiding some of these pitfalls we talked about today. So thanks for listening, everybody. I will definitely have more things to say about kind of travel philosophy and how to make it work in future episodes. And stay tuned for more from me coming soon to you next week. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.